On this week's episode, the console wars get heavier as Microsoft buys Bethesda. Just how good is the console wars on CBS All Access? And will John Cena wipe out as Peacemaker? All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, whatever you can do to support us, throw out some of those Facebook gaming stars at us. It is truly appreciated. Well, no Josh again this week. That might be a good thing. He's probably relaxing somewhere in the middle of Texas. So I wish him well as always. But sitting in the big chair again with me this week is my good friend. He is the man behind Castle Creative. You got to go ahead and check out his show, all the thing everything that he's doing today. At everything that he's doing today at Castle Creative. You want to go, that's 2 Ks. Castle with a K, Creative with a K. It is Marcus Taylor Garza. And Marcus, before we head on out and talk to you about all the stuff, before we get into everything that's going on within the realm of pop culture, why don't you go ahead and just give me the lowdown on what you're up to in your world.
Thank you for that, Gerald. And thank you to the PCC family for having me back again.
Well, it might be a longer stay than you think, my friend, because we're trying to work on some stuff to keep you here for a while.
We are. We're working behind the scenes to see if I can stay around for a little bit. But I think I am. I'll tell everyone right now. I think I am.
Well, we're glad to have you here, and we truly appreciate everything that you've done for us.
Well, and I can't thank you guys enough for the same. You guys have done wonderful things for us in the past, and I can't thank you enough for the support you gave to our show when we were going a couple years ago, and everything you did there. But I do want to take a second. I'm on Twitter, Castle FPV. That's Kastle FPV. And you'll find me there. I'm actually officially off Instagram for at least the next 6 weeks. I'm taking part in a paid study. So you'll have my undivided attention on Twitter from here on out, Kastle FPV. So reach me there. I'll interact with anybody and everybody. Let's go. I'll talk about anything.
There you go. Got to check that out. Check out Marcus De La Garza's Twitter out there and go ahead and give him a big shout out from all of us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. We've got a lot to talk about today, including No Man's Sky getting a huge update. Is it enough to get you back into the game or get you into the game for the first time? We're going to go ahead and talk about that coming up. Console Wars. The documentary just debuted this week on CBS All Access. I'm going to go ahead and share my thoughts on it because I've seen it. Plus, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a heads up out there that are listening to us right here at the PCC Multiverse. On next week's show, I'm going to have an interview with the directors of the latest Consoles Wars, the Console Wars documentary. I'm going to have an interview with Blake J. Harris and Jonah Tullis. Just cannot wait to go ahead and speak to both of them. If you know Blake's work, you've actually read his book, Console Wars. So that's what he's based it off of. It's just, I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead and talk about that here in a few minutes because Console Wars is definitely worth your time on CBS All Access. In fact, there's Evan Goldberg, and of course, so many great people that are involved with it as far as Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, who are part of the boys, and Seth Rogen's work all over the place. So having them involved with this obviously helps bring it up even further. But again, I'm going to go into my thoughts on the actual movie itself, the documentary movie, CBS that's now playing on CBS All Access. That's coming up here in a few minutes. Plus also as well, we're going to be talking about John Cena, as my daughter would say. His career is going in a different direction away from pro wrestling. We're going to go ahead and talk about that coming up later in the program. Wandavision has a new trailer. We're going to go ahead and talk about that. That dropped right after we went on the air on Sunday. So we want to go ahead and talk about that coming up. Plus, Disney makes some major movie changes. We'll discuss that as well. Rest in peace to Road Warrior Animal. We'll talk about his career coming up later in the program. And speaking of rest in peace, we may be soon saying that for big fans out there of the Sizzler's restaurant. So I have some fond memories of Sizzler, and actually Marcus does as well. And we'll go ahead and end the show with that. But first, my friend, the big news. Xbox decided to go on a little bit of a shopping spree. And they did say no to TikTok, but they did say yes to Bethesda in a clear move to try and advance themselves in this coming generation. This is one of the biggest major first steps that we've seen as far as a preemptive strike, so to speak, on the verge of a new generation that we've ever seen. So I want to hear your thoughts on Xbox buying Bethesda.
All right. So Satya Nadella actually said you can't just wake up and decide you want to build a game studio tomorrow. And in turn, turn around and bought Bethesda as well as their parent company, ZeniMax. And so it was kind of exciting to see that. And I think this is the first shot in the modern console wars. And I think you would probably agree with me there, wouldn't you, Gerald?
Absolutely. I mean, there are other targets being talked about. Sega is being heavily rumored as far as being bought out by Microsoft. Microsoft has said that there's at the Tokyo Game Show, which is taking place this weekend, that they're not going to make any major announcements of any other acquisitions, but Sega and some other mid-level companies now are being targeted possibly by Sony, Nintendo, and Xbox for future acquisitions, because Xbox, I think, once and for all, is finally putting its foot down and saying, you know what, we're getting tired of being number 3 in the console race, and this upcoming console generation, we have a fresh start. We know PlayStation 4 kicked our butts, but this time around, we want to make it a different choice for consumers by becoming the place that RPG makers like Obsidian, obviously everything that Bethesda puts out there and all the other game companies that they've either acquired or developed on their own, playgrounds as far as for Fable, the folks that are fans of Fable, that's going to be coming out in some form or fashion in the not too distant future. So you have so many different RPGs that are going to be a part of the Xbox mix going forward. But the question is, my friend, as what was stated in several news conferences over the course of the past week and interviews and things of that nature, Xbox has said it's going to be on a case-by-case basis on exclusivity for their future games. Speculate to me which games you think will become an Xbox exclusive.
I actually don't know off the top of my head what they're aiming at yet, but I will say that this is going to be a major impact in the console war for this generation. Just buying Bethesda and ZeniMax in period is going to have a major impact on the PS5 sales. Maybe not immediately, but long term. We're seeing the consumption of one of the best RPG makers out there. I would contend, and they've slacked in the last few years. They're the tail end of the most recent generation of consoles has suffered. Dishonored didn't do well. Fallout 76 didn't do well.
And that might be part of the reasoning behind, going ahead and being bought out by Microsoft. That might have been part of the reasons why. Had Fallout 76 been a humongous hit, had Dishonored been a pretty big hit, had, the only thing that we can rebut is Doom. The latest iteration of Doom is the only thing that's either done well critically or done well financially here in the past few years. ESO has been a mainstay, but as far as the Elder Scrolls Online, it's not something that I don't think it's been to the point where they really wanted to go ahead and market that as the preeminent online game or online experience, because it hasn't been. They've been overshadowed by several other games, Fortnite, PUBG, the list goes on and on, Call of Duty, there's been a lot of experiences there that are better than or been more popular, but ESO has been a mainstay, and that is staying multi-platform going forward. But I think they're going to pick and choose which games. That's
our only guarantee moving forward, I think. Right? That's
your only guarantee as of now. I can pretty much tell you that Elder Scrolls 6 would not be in their best interest if they made that exclusive because they would be selling themselves out a lot of money. But then again, if they make it exclusive and you want the next Elder Scrolls, you have to go only to Xbox. I don't think they will. I think Elder Scrolls 6
You're shutting a whole portion of their fan base off.
Yeah, I mean, with Skyrim being on every single format seemingly over the past 10 years, where everywhere they could stick it on, they did. I think Elder Scrolls 6 will be a multi-platform game because I think it's sold. I think estimates around 35 million units that were sold. So I don't think you would go ahead and like you said, cut yourself off from a large portion of the marketplace by doing so. But games like Starfield, even Doom, anything mid-level for them, or anything that hasn't reached out to like an Elder Scrolls type huge fan base or has that goodwill, I don't think, I think that's very much up in play that it could become an exclusive for them. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what is going to be exclusive and what's not exclusive, and everything will be coming to Xbox Game Pass. So now anybody who gets an Xbox One or Xbox Series S or X has got to go ahead and get Xbox Game Pass now.
Well, and that's that's going to further drive that knife home in the stab that is the console wars here. If you can start grabbing some of these titles that are going to bring some of the loyalists in, you're going to start bringing people in, period, to your console. And that's what you need to start doing right now. You need to build the hype. You need to make sure that when you launch, people are ready. People want to have your titles. People want to be on your platform. And I think Microsoft has taken the aggressive first step here in buying Bethesda, ZeniMax Media, really, and making sure that they've got the titles they want for the next generation.
I'm in total agreement with you. And again, if you're makers of Starfield, even Doom, like you said, if Dishonored is brought back, any of the library that they have that hasn't hit on a top tier, you could become an Xbox exclusive game, in my opinion. It's just the Elder Scrolls series. Possibly
you can't do that. You can't make that
Fallout
exclusive.
Series. Let me ask you this: will the Fallout series go exclusive? Because the failure of Fallout 76 has softened the prominence of Fallout in the eyes of gamers. And now Fallout may be on the downslide. All it takes is just one good Fallout game and it'll be rising back up. But I want to hear your thoughts on the future of Fallout, and could that become an exclusive to Xbox?
I don't doubt that it might become an exclusive, and simply because they took such a loss on 76. Why would you try and make that a multi-platform title? Just release it to the Xbox first, and then if it has some success, maybe you do a remastered version and release it on PS4 or PS5 a few years later, right? Maybe you do something that opens up to other consoles, or maybe you just stick with your Xbox and have the PC gamers as well and call it quits there.
Well, the thing is, when you're talking about exclusivity and non-exclusivity, let's just say Elder Scrolls 6. They say, okay, You know what? In the boardroom, we're going to make it an exclusive title. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, if they bring out Elder Scrolls 1 year down the line to PlayStation 5, it's not going to sell well. It's not going to sell. I mean, what was it? Tomb Raider and some other games over the years have had that 1 year exclusivity from one big platform to the other. And every time they finally bring it out to those other platforms, they never get the kind of interest from gamers that they would have had a year ago. So those companies lost out on the large tier of money. You either go all in on the exclusivity for each of your titles, or you don't, because the fact is you're going to lose out on a lot of money, because these gamers, us gamers, we need to go ahead and have it now in front of our face. And if it's not, out of sight, out of mind, a year later on, oh yeah, that game was, 2019. That's great. But I'm not going to buy it. I got other stuff to do. I got other stuff to play.
We've never had something that was so hyped though that came out after the fact, though, have we?
But I'm like I said, the Tomb Raider. What was it? I don't know.
Tomb Raider. Sorry, my bad.
One of the Tomb Raider games was a 1 year exclusive, and by the time it finally came out, even with some hype and even with some advertising and promotion, it didn't really score the kind of sales once it went out to another platform that it would have. And I'm not talking about Nintendo Switch because everything is coming late to Nintendo Switch and it's either going to sell or not sell. But I'm talking about Xbox and PlayStation here.
Right.
And that's just what the way the landscape of the marketplace currently is. That with Bethesda, they're going to have to go ahead and with Microsoft decide exactly the way, how they want to go about their future going forward. Obviously, the goal is trying to make the Xbox platform the preeminent platform for video games. We got a comment here from Duke Togo 13. Xbox Game Studios are probably going to be the leading Western RPG publishers going through next gen with Fable, Avowed from Obsidian looks really good. Avowed looks really good.
Okay.
Elder Scrolls, Starfield, and In Exile's unannounced AAA RPG. Duke Togo 13, you hit it right in the head. They will be in this next generation the leading publisher. Xbox will for RPGs, and Xbox Series will be the home for RPGs going forward, at least in the foreseeable future, in my opinion, as well.
Well, and as soon as you pull up Avowed's website right now, I just pulled it up quickly as you were talking about it. They've got Xbox Series X, Xbox Game Pass, and Windows PC. Those are their platforms. Those are the platforms they're sticking to. Have fun.
Well, that's because it's Obsidian. The Outer Worlds was such a big hit for them, but they were bought up by Microsoft, and their future is strong with them. There could even be possibly a reimagining or a extension of Fallout New Vegas, since Obsidian and Bethesda are now owned by the same company. You could actually see a Fallout New Vegas expanded upon with a new game in that series that could be exclusive to Xbox. I mean, the possibilities are all there. And Xbox, $7.5 billion. That's the thing, though, when we look at it. I mean, we look at what Disney did with the Star Wars acquisition, Disney's acquisitions with Marvel, and all the other acquisitions that they made. You look on a case-by-case basis. Did they spend too much here? Did they spend too much there? When it all comes said and done, when it's all said and done, my friend, I want to ask you this: $7.5 billion. Do you think it's going to be worth it as far as Xbox buying ZeniMax and, of course, Bethesda?
Absolutely. Simply for Elder Scrolls. Elder Scrolls. I mispronounced that one. I think that alone is going to make it worth it, right? Especially if you make that cross-platform, like we were just discussing a few minutes ago. If you can make that cross-platform and leave that open to the entire world of the PS5, and even if that's your only one that's cross-platform or not cross-platform, on multiple
cross-platform.
It is cross-platform. It's multiple platforms, cross-platform. When I think cross-platform, I always think of like playing with somebody on Xbox if I'm on PS5 for some reason. But but
multi-platform. There you go.
Yeah, multi-platform. There you go. But yeah, cross-platform. I mean, it's just. Why would you not make that cross-platform? That's your money maker. You can almost make 25% back of what you just put into that purchase price. You would hope, right? I would love to look at the numbers on how well the last Elder Scrolls sold, and then look at the numbers on PS5 and figure out if there's any crossover there, and figure out how much money we could project that Microsoft might make if they did a crossover like that. One
last question.
Yeah.
Are these big publishers, Xbox, Sony, and Nintendo, done shopping?
No, not at all. It's going to keep going. We're going to see the consumption of the Sega catalog, like you were just talking about, and watching the Console Wars documentary. I've only gotten through about half of it. It's fun to see, and it's fun to see the marketing tactics they were using when they initially launched to compete against each other. And it almost feels like we're watching the revitalization of that right now. We're watching not Nintendo and Sega. We're watching Xbox and PlayStation go at it, and they're using the same tactics.
A revision of Console Wars, indeed.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts out there on what's going on as far as Xbox buying Bethesda? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Special shout out to you, Duke Togo 13. Thanks for the great comment. I love that input. Truly, thank you so much for going ahead and giving us a shout out right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But moving on, I want to go ahead. Speaking of Console Wars, it is a new documentary that's out on CBS All Access. You just said you got through halfway through it. I've actually seen it all. And I'll tell you what, I am so thrilled to go ahead and tell everybody how good this Console Wars documentary is. If you don't have CBS All Access, get the free trial, buy the subscription, whatever you need to do before it migrates into Paramount Plus at the beginning of next year. Because I'll tell you what, Console Wars is an outstanding documentary detailing exactly what went on between the fight between Sega, Nintendo in regards to the Sega Genesis and the Nintendo Entertainment System, and then later on the Sony PlayStation, which came into the fray. I want to tell you this: it was a great documentary. I wanted to know a little bit more on the end about the Sony PlayStation, because if you read the book, The Console Wars, you get to find out a little bit more about their end of it, and as far as the people that were involved on that end, but they didn't get a chance to go ahead and delved into too much of that. But outside of that, it's a truly outstanding documentary. There were things in it that weren't even mentioned in the book, at least on the beginning part of it, that I really enjoyed. So I'll tell you what, Console Wars documentary, it's one of the best documentaries of the year, and I truly enjoy it. How has your time so far spent on Console Wars?
It's been really great. My mom is in town this week visiting, and we sat down to watch that this morning, and we had to run out and run an errand. We came back, we sat down, and immediately both of us were like, you want to turn it back on? Let's go. And so we did. We turned it back on. The way that they've done some of the animations has been amazing. Specifically, when they talk about Sega of Japan's, what's his name? Hayao Nakayama. When they're talking about the big boss in Japan, they've got this great animation style that's almost
anime style.
Yeah, it's 32-bit, like in Sega Genesis style almost. And it's wonderful to watch. It's a beautiful reminder of what we used to enjoy, right? And so just getting through about half the documentary right now, I'm sad that it missed its South by Southwest premiere for 2020. I wish I was there. I wish I would have been there to be able to watch this in person. This is outstanding, and I'm kind of sad that I've only been able to get through about half of it so far.
Absolutely. And again, I will be speaking and interviewing. I'll be interviewing Blake J. Harris and Jonah Tullis of Console Wars, the documentary, here next week. So hopefully I will have that for all you listeners that, out there on radio and also our podcast. I will be having that hopefully next week for you on our show on Friday. Yes.
I was just going to say, everybody needs to watch this. You need to watch and see how Sega really upended the marketplace when it came to marketing. They really thought outside the box here, and they pushed Nintendo to their limits when it came to marketing, pushing these early consoles.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I do highly recommend it. I want to tell you this, that it's just such an outstanding documentary. I watched the previous month on Netflix High Score, the docuseries, and that also had a very slick presentation to it, but it was very scattershot, and it really didn't give you the whole landscape of how the entire history of video games came to be. And I was very disappointed and let down by that documentary, no matter how good it looked. Mm-hmm. It just was just scattershot in its presentation. But I can tell you right now, Console Wars, with executive producers Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, who, again, the boys, and they're doing a whole bunch of other stuff, and you know them from a lot of their other work that they've done, Sausage Party and the whole nine yards. They've done a great job working with Blake J. Harris and Jonah Tullis. Cannot thank them enough for going ahead and putting this out there. And I will be speaking to both the directors of Console Wars here on next week's PCC Multiverse, so I'm looking forward to it. And I highly recommend Console Wars. It is one of the best movies of the year. And it's so funny, this leads me into my question with you, because I've had a lot of great experiences this year with documentaries and docuseries. I'm currently watching The Vow on HBO. I've watched McMillions on HBO. I've watched Class Action Park on HBO Max. I mean, there's so many. Obviously, Tiger King has gotten raves as far as lots of people.
I knew you were going to go there.
Netflix. I wasn't exactly in love with it. I thought there was better stuff out there, but I want to hear your thoughts. The documentary and the docuseries in 2020 has gone to the forefront on popularity and what people are watching and how they're being promoted, because I see HBO Max pushing Class Action Park. I spoke to Seth Porges, the director of Class Action Park, here on this show a couple of weeks ago, and he said off the air that it had just reached the #1 movie on HBO Max. So people are watching docuseries and documentary, and because back in the day with your dad, my dad, docuseries and documentaries were like stuff like, oh my gosh, watching animals and National Geographic or something like that. That was just kind of there and not really interesting to the majority of the public out there. But in recent years, as my good friend Rob McCallum, who's a documentary filmmaker, will tell me time and time again, the documentary has evolved and changed into something much more popular.
Yeah, I will say that I think 2020 is the year of documentaries, and we're not done yet. We're going to see a lot more coming just based on what we're looking at politically, socially, all that other stuff. We're not going to get there today, but if you want to talk about it, we'll meet you at the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It seems like that's where we're covering a lot of that stuff right now. So I do want to say, though, I did watch a great documentary this year. It's Have a Good Trip. It's on Netflix. I'm not going to... I'm not promoting a psychedelic use. I'm not a psychedelic user, but I will say this is one of the better documentaries I've seen in a while. You've got Nick Offerman, you've got Sting, you've got A$AP Rocky, you got Rosie Perez, you got Reggie Watts. I mean, like, you've got big names tied into this documentary. It's outstanding, and it really does kind of give you a mix into the pros, the cons, and the science behind some of the psychedelics that people have used throughout time.
So there you go. Even more suggestions, but it tells you the importance of documentaries and docuseries to the overall mix of pop culture here in 2020. So go ahead.
I was going to say that there's plenty of documentaries out there that have really moved me throughout the years. I want to say it's Bottled is the one that really moved me a couple years ago, three or 4 years ago. It's on Netflix, or it was on Amazon Prime, or not Netflix. It was on Amazon Prime there for a while. But it was about just bottled water, and it kind of took an in-depth look at Nestle and some of the other major bottled water players in the marketplace and talked about their tactics.
Absolutely. And, as my friend would say, please go ahead and give us a shout out. That would be Rob McCallum, and obviously for Zero Cool Films and Rob McCallum Films and all that. So yes, Nintendo Quest is still one of my favorite documentaries that I've ever seen. Missing Mom has been great as well. I know he's got 2 that are coming down the pipeline very soon, and Box Art Adventure, and also as well Action Figure Adventure. So I will tell you this, the documentary and docuseries really come to the forefront here, especially with so many streaming services vying for content, that they need content. And to see documentaries and docuseries really get a lot of pub is just an awesome thing to see. What are your thoughts out there on the Console Wars documentary that's now on CBS All Access? Did you love it like Marcus and I did? Or you have some thoughts on it? Or do you really need to go ahead and check it out? Let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com, because I definitely tell you right now, if you see Console Wars, the documentary on CBS All Access, you will be glad you did. Before we head to the half hour, my friend, I want to go ahead and hit you up. No Man's Sky, speaking of video games, because this first half hour is we've devoted to video games. Want to go ahead and close it off with No Man's Sky having a huge, as the guys behind No Man's Sky said, it's their huge yearly update. It's Origins update, which will be adding billions of planets and a lot of other features to it, including sandworms, which was once promised as far as the presentation way back when, but it's now coming to light. I want to hear your thoughts on No Man's Sky, this huge update. Is it going to finally bring you into the game, or is it going to finally bring people back into the game? Because No Man's Sky, which was once deemed I don't want to say a failure, but a lot of broken promises when it initially came out from what the E3 presentation originally was.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking. Let's just call it that.
Yeah, absolutely. Heartbreaking indeed. It is now finally starting to be the adventure so many people were hoping for.
Yeah, if you look at Hello Games, the studio behind No Man's Sky, Sean Murray came out this week and said, this is the year that we thought it was the time to revisit some of the foundations of the game. They started looking into the fauna in the game, the animals, everything that exists, and they wanted to start fulfilling their promise that they issued in 2018 at the debut of this game, I think. And it's been a rough couple of years for them, but I think they've learned a lot in the under promise over deliver category, or the under promise over deliver sentiment there. In the sense of they really feel like they've matured as a studio. They're not ready to start talking about. Actually, it was 2016, not 2018.
Yeah, I was going to say that. No, it's been at least 3-4 years.
Yeah,
friend.
yeah. It's 2016. Sorry, but yeah, they've done a lot to try and update this game throughout time. But I mean, the damage was done. Let's talk about on release day that was a flop. The month after release day was still a flop. There was no correction there by the studio itself. They eventually started working on those updates that really started to get some of these features moving that they had premiered at the original trailers. And a lot of the features they had premiered just in their interviews that they did in the lead up to the release of No Man's Sky. So it's fun to see that they're starting to incorporate a lot of the things that were supposed to make them great right out the gate. Is it too little too late though? And I'll say that I don't want to go back and buy this game. I don't want to, invest time in it. It feels too little too late for me.
That's that's understandable. That's not to be unexpected. I will say this, that he did say as well that they're having as larger fan base now as that they've ever had when it comes to No Man's Sky. So a lot of people are going back into it. If I get it at a reduced price, I'm really thinking about going back into No Man's Sky because I'm not going to be getting a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X until there are a lot of games. But then again, that was our discussion last week that are exclusive to that console. So I will have a lot of time on my hands for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So yeah, if I see something that I really like from No Man's Sky, I will be getting that. If it comes at a reduced price. I know they've been holding the price up because of the fact that they keep putting content and fresh content and trying to keep it, make it fresh. But if the price does get reduced for this holidays, I could be picking up on the cheap.
Well, and I would say that, it's down to $30 at GameStop right now, new. So it might be worth the purchase. I definitely know I wouldn't pay $60 for it right now.
No, and I don't blame you with, but if it starts going to 20, 15, you never know. Might be time
20, I'm in. I'll tell you that right now.
There you go. Well, it might be time at that price to check out what's going on with the latest with No Man's Sky. What are your thoughts out there on No Man's Sky? We want to hear your thoughts. Are you jumping back in, or are you already in, or are you not going back in to the world or the universe of No Man's Sky? Share your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, we're back on the back end of the show. We're on the back end of the show. It's Gerald Glasser along with my good friend Marcus de la Garza of Castle Creative. Want to ask you this, my friend. Disney made some major changes again, as everybody's seeing here on Facebook Live, to their slate of upcoming films, which I know to a lot of people there was not unexpected, but still disheartening. I want to hear your thoughts on what's going on with all the Disney movie changes. I'm going to go ahead and give people a quick list. Death on the Nile, it moved to basically December of next year. Death on the Nile moved to this year from October to December of this year. The Empty Man is going to be moved actually up from December to October right now. That Black Widow obviously is the big ticket here. That moved from November to May of next year. Eternals moved from February of next year to November of next year. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings previously was going to be coming out in May. That's moving to July of next year. Untitled Disney event film, a lot of speculation on that one. That's been taken off the schedule, so who knows what that is going to be. Deep Water from 20th Century Fox, which is owned by Disney, that's moving from a November date this year to an August date next year. Another untitled 20th Century Fox, that's been taken also off the schedule. West Side Story, Steven Spielberg's reimagining of this great musical, that's been moved from December of this year to December of next year. And The Kingsman, which I was kind of excited for. I wanted to go ahead and check that out. That's been moved all over the place. That had just been moved to February of next year, and that is actually being moved up 2 weeks to earlier in February, I guess in the Valentine's Day weekend of next year. So you see all these strategic changes that were made by Disney with not only their properties, but the 20th Century Fox properties that they now own and that have already been in production, already been developed and whatnot. So I want to hear your thoughts. Obviously, the Marvel movies are the big ticket here. So I want to hear your thoughts on Disney making a whole bunch of changes to a whole bunch of films.
I do want to say you're making a liar out of me, Gerald, because last week I think I told everybody we were going to stop talking about some of the delays here. But
we're never going to stop talking about delays because it's going to keep on happening. It's going to keep on happening.
It's going to keep on happening. And we talked about it ad nauseum the last 2 weeks about how we've totally changed our release schedule moving forward for all forms of entertainment. I'm just glad to see that when they announced the pushback of the Black Widow movie and basically phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we're at this point now that they've said we're not going to affect the timeline here in the MCU, right? We're still on budget, or not on budget. We're still on timeline here to make sure that all the movies are going to come out in the order they need to be, so that none of this is out of order. None of this makes no sense. It's all going to carry on. But I am a little bit shocked that, we've been talking about this for 2 weeks now, about how the prospective pushback was going to happen. I've got a note here that just says, why haven't we done this sooner? Right? This is our third week of discussion. I just wish we would have made up our minds sooner and would have announced something sooner. That this has been ping-ponging around in the emails of all the executives for the last few weeks, trying to decide whether or not they were going to do this or not. I think we need to start taking some not positive, but some very definitive steps and start looking at how we need to be pushing back timelines on a lot of our favorite shows, favorite movies, favorite franchises, period.
Well, with Disney and with all these movie companies, I'm just going to tell you right now, they're gauging everything that's out there. Tenet is like the poster child for this. I mean, we put it out there, let's see what happens, and it'll be lucky to garner over $400 million worldwide. And this was a movie that really had $700, $800, $1 billion written all over it. Mulan has been pretty much a box office failure, especially in China, where it was supposed to get huge money, and it's not even coming close. And we don't know how effective it was on Disney Plus. My guess is the Disney Plus hybrid model wasn't as effective as it was hopefully going to be for Disney, because Black Widow would have been announced on Disney Plus being put on there had that been the case. Mm-hmm. So seeing that now, I'm like you said, it's going to be a constant pushback, because as long as audiences are not going back to the theaters, these major tentpole movies are going to be pushed back until people decide that they want to go back to the movies, and we're going to continue to see that going forward.
Well, and I will push back on you just a little bit there and say that Tenet was supposed to be an IMAX feature, right? You were going to drive higher ticket sales and everything, just hype, period, by having that movie released nationwide on IMAX screens. And while they did do that to a certain extent, it's not possible to get all the viewership that they wanted. And that might have been a big miss. I think Christopher Nolan might have made the wrong call there in trying to push the studio execs to get this movie out.
He's going to lose a little bit of power because of it, but still, he creates such magical movies. I don't think it'll hurt him too much in the long run, because Tenet has garnered somewhat favorable reviews, and I'm still very excited to see it. And I'm very excited to see it in my home. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I'm not going to go out at this point in time in the middle of the theater. And a lot of people are like me, and they're not going back to theaters. And here, at least in North America, also as well, many major spots around the world, people are not going back to theaters. So that is weighing on the decision of all these movers and shakers in the movie industry on delaying their projects, and also saying yes to any big budget projects going forward, because it's really coming down to an issue with whether or not you want to spend $200-300 million on production on something that may not be able to come close to it on getting back on a return.
Well, and these movie studios need to start projecting for when we're post-COVID, right? I think that there's going to be a coming market where you've got to start projecting whether or not we're going to be able to, whether or not we're going to have a vaccine by mid 2021. And if we do you start pushing a lot of your major releases out for October, November, December of 2021? And if so, how can you capitalize on that while your competitors are sitting around waiting to figure out how they can push their own movies and TV shows out.
Absolutely.
So I honestly think that if Disney Plus can get ahead of the game and start projecting when they think we will start to see the return to theaters, the return to normal entertainment scheduling, if they could push the envelope here and make us get to that point, they'd be making tons of money. They'd be making everything back that they probably lost.
I don't know about that, my friend, because they've lost a whole ton of money.
Yeah, I'll take that back. They've lost billions of dollars.
Yeah, to say the least. Every major movie studio has, at the very least, billions and billions of dollars has been lost. This has been the worst year for movies ever, as far as just from a standpoint of people not going to the movies, probably in the history of film. But as far as losing money, I'm sure, just as far as revenue is concerned, you probably had the least amount in maybe 20, 30 years at the very least. And I'm just telling you right now, we're going to feel the effects of this in the movie industry for a long time to come, because these movie companies don't continuously have this run of cash to go ahead and fork over for projects. So that their choices now will be limited going forward, even though demand, the absolute demand, because of all the streaming outlets are there. It's still not enough to supplant the offset, or it's still not enough to offset the kind of money you lost by people not going to the theaters.
Right. And it's just gonna, yes, I think you said it best there, and I'm gonna leave it there. It's just we are in a totally new world, and that's all it is. We've got to wait and see. I think the businessman that exists somewhere inside of my head is thinking, can we be the first one out there? Can we be the NASCAR of the professional sports world in COVID, right? Like they pushed the envelope. They got out there before anybody else. So who's going to be that first studio that says we're going to get out there before anybody else? Maybe releases 2 films that are smash hits.
I don't know. I mean, Warner Brothers was kind of grooming itself to be that with Tenet, and they were going to put out Wonder Woman, but they decided to delay Wonder Woman, so they got a little gun shy as well. So we're going to be seeing that probably for the foreseeable future.
Right.
What are your thoughts out there on Disney making a whole bunch of changes on release dates to a whole bunch of films? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Speaking of Disney, Marvel, and Disney Plus, after Josh and I went on the air on Sunday to tape the Pop Culture Cosmos, wouldn't you know, at the Emmys, they showed off their WandaVision trailer, which for a series, I think this will be the only Marvel series. Unfortunately, Falcon and the Winter Soldier probably will not be coming this year as of what is being hinted at. Maybe not. It's looking more maybe not. So WandaVision looks like the only show that's guaranteed on the Marvel slate that's going to be coming out this year. And we did get to see a trailer of it on Sunday. So I want to hear your thoughts, my friend, on the WandaVision trailer. Is it something that interests you? I mean, it really goes back to a lot of the theories behind the House of M series that came out of the comic books. I think there's a really good influence on that. In fact, it's on one of the wine bottles that you see in the middle of there. A lot of these entities out there have already slowed and freeze framed to show you that, look, it's from the House of M. All right, there's a little Easter egg in there for you. So I want to hear your thoughts on this, especially as it equates to the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because it looks like with Wanda, aka just basically the Scarlet Witch, heading to be a major part of Doctor Strange 2, this definitely looks like it's going to be something that sets that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually very excited that they're pushing forward on WandaVision. We talked about it briefly last week, and it's when the trailer came out this week, I immediately turned it on, and we actually watched it as a family in the household here. All of us were very excited by the trailer itself, and it was one of those things that none of us were really that attuned to what WandaVision should be. We didn't know what we should be expecting, anything like that. And just simply playing the trailer, my mom was on board. She said, I'm down to watch this. You got to let me know when it comes out. And then my wife was thrilled. So I'm looking forward to this. The fact that you've got people out there that are slowing down this trailer to find the Easter eggs is mind-blowing. Not mind-blowing. I mean, this is happening all the time, but it's beautiful, right? And it's great writing. It's great directing.
Well,
it's
it shows you
everything.
the kind of demand there is for Marvel products right now.
Yeah, I mean, people are just losing their minds trying to consume Marvel products right now, and I don't blame them. This is some of the best entertainment you can get on TV and big screen right now.
Right. And this will be the first year that we don't have a Marvel movie since 2009. So
It hurts,
I mean,
man.
it hurts a lot indeed. So I will tell you this, WandaVision, there's a lot of Easter eggs in there as far as for what could be dictating a lot on as far as the temporal end, I should say, or the time rift end, or as far as the ends that create the mysterious and the novelty of it as far as that's concerned, the ethereal plane type deal. Want to go ahead and hear your thoughts on what WandaVision will do for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because there's going to be, it looks like it's branching off into the almost like a ground-based, space-based sort of deal, as far as the ground-based where you can deal with like Shang-Chi, you're going to deal with a lot more like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Those seem to be relating to each other. And then you have something as far as you're seeing with the Eternals and Doctor Strange 2 and WandaVision that's going to deal with a lot of things on a different sort of plane. And eventually the Avengers, when those movies come out again, are going to bring everything back together. So it's interesting how they're going to be able to weave this all in to work itself out like that. So I'm very curious to see, but I want to hear everyone's thoughts. PopCultureCosmos@yahoo.com. Did you enjoy the WandaVision trailer, and does it get you excited for what you're going to see on Disney Plus in December? We'd love to hear your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos@yahoo.com. My friend, we've got a little bit to go here on the show. Ken, always want to thank you for stopping by as always. Before we head on out, we got to talk some pro wrestling because, as my daughter would say, John Cena is doing a lot of work outside of the pro wrestling ring. He was announced a couple weeks ago being part of a show that I thought, and I was talking to Jessica Boggs of the TVRatingsGuide.com on this last month. Like, wouldn't it be great with Holy Moly and all this other success of similar type shows, American Ninja, where people just want to see these guys and gals just hit their heads and into the water, basically, just do some kind of funky little as they splash. Yeah. I mean, wouldn't it be great if they brought back Wipeout? And sure enough, they did. John Cena has been announced being part of a revival. I think it's coming to TBS on Wipeout. But the big deal with John Cena came out this week as his character in the upcoming Suicide Squad movie. Well, it's actually going to be 2 years down the line. I know they're filming it now, but it's going to be a while before it comes out. Suicide Squad, his character, Peacemaker, which I do not believe is part of the comics. I think it's a totally created character. I think.
He actually might be. He has his own standalone story.
Does he have his own standalone? Okay, I know there's a created character in there. You're right. I'm not. It's not Polka Dot Man. There is a newly created character, I think, specifically for Suicide Squad.
So Peacemaker was originally introduced in 1966. I pulled up the Wikipedia article.
Okay, so he's okay.
So he is original. But he's kind of been in and out of things here and there. It wasn't really until the 1980s that Peacemaker really had his own series there.
Okay, well, fair enough. I give credit due on that. Thank you, Marcus. I know there's a newly created character specifically in the Suicide Squad that's not appeared in the DC Comics. Mm-hmm. That has been confirmed. I just forget which one off the top of my head, so I apologize for that. No, but Peacemaker, as you alluded to, or as John Cena would say, John Cena called Peacemaker a Captain America. If Captain America was a douchebag.
Yes,
I think was his quote. Yes. Yeah. So if Captain America was a douchebag, Peacemaker is going to get his own series on HBO Max, which you should check out just for the fact that you want to see how I don't want to say crazy or douchey or anything like that. Just say how crazy can John Cena be on television in this role, because you get an idea of what it might be like in Suicide Squad. So he is coming up with a limited series run on HBO Max, which I'm looking forward to, which is being headed up by James Gunn, who is directing Suicide Squad. So I'm looking forward to it. But again, it's this situation where you have a very successful pro wrestling star that is eyeing a future outside the ring. And obviously he's done some great things and some not so great things outside of the wrestling ring in movies and television in recent years. And that was the goal, obviously, to emulate what The Rock has done and to get anywhere near the level of success. And he's approaching it. He hasn't gotten quite there yet. Obviously, when you can't head off your own $200-300 million production movies like The Rock can, I mean, that's the point where you want to get. But he's not doing so bad right now. And Peacemaker is a good way, I think, to go ahead and initiate him even more to a worldwide audience.
I will go ahead and say this publicly. If anybody has a connect to John Cena and they can get me to just hang out with him for an hour, I would love to do that. I just want to poke the man's brain for an hour and figure out how he works. This dude is really, and you said it best there, Gerald. It feels like he's setting himself up to kind of be the next Rock. He doesn't have the $400 million or $300 million to command or produce his own movie right now, but 16-time champ is gonna do it, man. I would say in the next 5 or 6 years, John Cena is gonna become a movie TV staple, just like The Rock is currently. I'm very excited for Suicide Squad 2. I was a big fan of the first one, even though it did kind of flop. The writing was questionable at times. If you watch the extended cut, it explained everything that you were missing from the original theatrical release. I just wish they would have gone darker. And it's one of those things when you hear about the execs talking about the DC execs talking about the movie before it released, Warner Brothers execs talking about the movie before it released originally, it was one of those things that everybody thought it was too dark. And we've kind of come to see that, no, you could have pushed the envelope. You could have made the Joker darker. You could have made this the thing that people wanted to see. And they did, but they were let down when they got to the theaters. So I'm very excited that James Gunn is taking over Suicide Squad here. The fact that he's going to be putting his own spin on all of this is going to be great. It's going to be more of a 1980s action film feel is what I've read and watched today. I'm really excited about it. Just even watching Margot Robbie holding a rocket launcher in one of the early reveal trailers had me laughing. And I'm super excited about her character. To get back to John Cena, though, this dude is about to play the most rude badass he's ever played, I think, in the world.
Yeah, he's very foul-mouthed from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to see that. That's something we've never seen from him, and I think that's a side of him that he needs to explore if he wants to be a great actor, right? The Rock's had time to be the heel. John Cena really hasn't been the heel to a certain extent when it comes to movies. He has, but he hasn't had a chance to really explore that role to the fullest. And that's where I think the TV series, which is also going to be directed by James Gunn, he's going to be directing and producing the pilot, and then a few more episodes beyond that is what I know out the gate.
Absolutely, but I'm excited to see. And if it becomes a hit on HBO Max, I'm sure more is in the offering for Peacemaker going forward.
Can we just talk about HBO Max is silently stacking their catalog right now?
It is. I mean, like I've told you before, I had Seth Porges, who was recently on the show, who has the #1 movie on there with Class Action Park, which, like we said, is just a major part of their advertising. So it's great to see. But they're actually lining everything up. I mean, obviously with the DC universe now trying to become more into the fold, and all that they're doing as far as the shows that they're lining up and things of that nature. Talked about more, trying to get more and more things going. Whenever they get the Friends reunion going, that probably be a big hit for them. But yes, HBO Max is certainly making a mark. I know people kind of balked at their $15 price point. I believe if you check out right now on internet advertising, they're still reducing that to $11.99 a month right now for a limited time. So people want to buy into that, go ahead for a year for $11.99. I think it's a good value at $12. At $15, it's still a decent value because you've got a lot there to choose from. But they're becoming a major player in the streaming industry, and it's obviously for competition-wise and for us as fans, it's great to see because there's a choice. We don't want just to go ahead to Netflix or Disney Plus. There's a major choice, and that's something I've talked about as far as with other like Apple Plus and Quibi, which have limited offerings. That when you see all the stuff that HBO Max or Peacock has as well, it's interesting to see what they have to offer, and hopefully a lot of people will be giving HBO Max a try going forward. What are your thoughts? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, absolutely. I would say that HBO Max and CBS All Access are well worth the money if you can afford that right now.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts out there on HBO Max? But actually, more importantly, what are your thoughts out there on John Cena with his revival of Wipeout that he's going to be a part of, and also Peacemaker, the character he's going to be playing in an upcoming limited series, and also Suicide Squad 2, which you cannot say. I don't think it's going to be Suicide Squad 2. It's going to be Suicide Squad Revisited or something like that, with the remake or add-on or whatever extension that they're doing of Suicide Squad. Who knows what it's going to be called?
The unconnected sequel?
Yeah, the unconnected sequel of Suicide Squad, which some previous characters and a lot of added new ones indeed. But what are your thoughts out there on John Cena being added on to his great work with Wipeout and of course Peacemaker coming to HBO Max? Share your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. And speaking of pro wrestling, I want to go ahead and pay my respects to one member of one of the greatest tag teams. In fact, if you look on popculturecosmos.com, I made an article a few years back on what I thought was the best manager, best women's wrestler, best male wrestler, and best tag team in professional wrestling at that point in time. And I listed the Road Warriors as the most influential and probably the biggest tag team to ever hit the pro wrestling scene. And unfortunately, this week we had the death of the other member, the only member alive at that point, the only member alive at this point in time, Road Warrior Animal. Road Warrior Animal did pass away. He unfortunately did pass away at the age of 60. So our thoughts to the Laurinaitis family, as far as our prayers, our thoughts and condolences to them. Road Warrior Animal, again, his mark in pro wrestling history can never be understated. Because again, as if you check out my article on popculturecosmos.com, you realize that with me looking at it, trying as objectively as I could, think that the Road Warriors are probably the greatest tag team of all time. Any thoughts?
I just want to say rest in peace to Animal. He's joining his tag team partner for life somewhere else, and you know it's sad to see him go. They did provide us with a lot of entertainment, a lot of great matches. They trained in Minneapolis. I didn't know until I moved to Minneapolis a few years ago that Minneapolis was the stronghold for wrestling.
Absolutely. And so, you had a lot of great, you had Ravishing Rick Rude. You obviously had the Road Warriors. You had many great wrestlers. In fact, Ric Flair himself emanated from there for quite a stretch of time in his early years. But you had a lot of great members of the wrestling community that started out there. And yeah, right around the same time when it concerns Rick Rude, the Road Warriors, and a lot of memorable names during the late 80s, early 90s type era. So yeah, if, out there, if you have any thoughts on Road Warrior Animals passing, we'd love to hear them. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Go ahead, my friend.
I was just going to say, I want to give a shout out to Nat, one of our listeners, Nat, that really keyed in on the wrestling stuff today. I actually reached out to her, hit her up, and let her know, hey, do you have any thoughts you would like to share? And she did. She just said that, it sucks that he died young. It's a lot of the fate of the old school wrestler guys that have been around for years, and I'm just sad that we're starting to see them kind of fade away here. So it's a lot of the fate.
Yeah, so I just checked right now. It's sorry about that. Technical difficulties trying to share. I want to hear your thoughts, man. Though again, how much did you get the chance to see the Road Warriors when you were a kid?
I watched a lot of WCW as a kid, some ECW as well, and then eventually WWF. And, I did get to watch him. He was Hawk made some appearances, if I want to remember correctly, with like Dusty Rhodes way back in the day. But, I really didn't know Animal as well. I remember when Hawk died in 2003, 2004-ish, but that's about it. These are guys that really shaped the sport and made it to what it is today, and have allowed us to appreciate what these guys can do athletically, even if it is just entertainment.
Yeah, even if it's just entertainment and it's stage, not stage, but even if the winners and losers are decided upon and it's coordinated, whatever you want to say. I mean, all of the things that people say about it are there. Still, he was a great performer, and like I said, part of one of the greatest tag teams, if not the greatest tag team of all time. I think everybody would go ahead and not dispute that as far as being one of the greatest. Now, I thought they were the greatest, the Road Warriors. they were not my favorite tag team. I just thought they made such a mark in the industry. And you can read my thoughts at popculturecosmos.com on the Road Warriors and just see what my thoughts are on the legacy of Hawk and Animal. And once again, last time, all respects and condolences to the Laurinaitis family and Road Warrior Animal. Rest in peace. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode, but before we head on out, I want to hear your quick thoughts on the Emmys before we go ahead on some memories, because I'm getting kind of hungry. We'll talk about this, a certain restaurant chain here in a sec, but the Emmys this past weekend, I want to hear your quick thoughts. Watchmen took a lot of awards, and deservedly so, in my opinion. A lot of other things that happened there. Were there anything as far as, okay, I'll say it right now, SCHITT, apostrophe S, Schitt's Creek. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying the bad word. I'm saying with a C.
Yep.
Took home a lot of awards this past weekend. Succession took some awards for HBO. So I want to hear your thoughts on Emmys as far as, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the show on Schitt's Creek. I'm not a big fan. I know. See, you can get away. You can get away with it though. You can get away with it though, because I said SCHITT apostrophe S Creek.
Oh no, I was more laughing at the fact that you're not a big fan of it, because I don't know a lot of people that are huge fans of this show. I don't know how they won so big.
I don't know how they want to. I mean, I know it's their last season. I know they're going to be going on as far as Netflix. They do a lot of their shows go there. I know they were on TV Land for the while, and they're being alternated on. I think on it was Hulu or somewhere else where they're going to have a destination on another network and whatnot. But I want to hear your thoughts, man, on the show, because I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not saying it's bad or anything like that. I'm just saying I just couldn't really get into it. I just don't find it as amusing as other people do, and maybe that's my fault.
Well, and I'm not sure about that, man. It's because Succession is the same way for me, right?
Same here too. I tried watching a few episodes. F-bomb, 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 F-bomb. You know what? Okay, I get it. F-bomb, F-bomb. But I just couldn't deal with it, man.
Let me ask you this question. Is it more
I wasn't trying to be a prude. Well, I wasn't trying to be a prude. I just it just hits you over the head with it so many times. It loses its effectiveness. And you really the story is about control and power and who's the old man going to give it to, and you lose that in this sea of F-bombs, and I lost interest.
Did you feel like both of those shows were like a story about the 0.001% of people that like have enough money to make this happen? And I think that's why I lost interest, right? When you're dealing with people at the level of the character in Succession, where they're managing a gigantic empire of wealth. And then even looking at Schitt's Creek, where with SCH, not, I want to make sure we're clear on that one. If you look at Schitt's Creek, kind of the same storyline. You've got a family that was super wealthy that lost all their wealth, and now they're trying to relate to the normal person, and they live out in the middle of nowhere in some town that they basically own, right? It just didn't do it for me. There is something weird about it, and I understand, we're supposed to laugh at them trying to relate to the normal person, but it felt like a miss for me. And at this point, I'm starting to realize maybe I should go back. I've undervalued the production quality. Maybe I've undervalued the writing. I'll give it one more shot, and I'll let you know. But I didn't appreciate Schitt's Creek. I didn't appreciate Succession, and I was kind of mind blown that they won so many at the Emmys. At the Emmys.
Same here, but with Watchmen, I'm not surprised, because that was
not at all.
That was a brilliant series. I don't know if I can put it on my list for 2020, simply the fact because it came out in December. So I'm kind of toggling that. I did watch it in 2020. I'm just going to say that's why I'm toggling on the list. But it was truly a tremendous. It'll be on my if it does qualify, and I'm going to talk to Josh on that. It will go on my top 5 of the year as far as entertainment, because it is truly that spectacular. If you get a chance, check out Watchmen on HBO or HBO Max. But I mean, for me, there were several other series which were better than either of those two series. I mean, The Boys last year in their first season was just truly awesome. It was the #1 TV show for me last year, and I cannot believe it got totally shut out. Anthony Starr's Homelander was mesmerizing. I mean, his performance was just truly incredible, and to ignore because he's not a name actor was just, my opinion, wasn't, they ignored him because he's not a name actor, was truly almost criminal. But there was just so many other shows. Lovecraft Country, I think I'm watching that. That's really good. I mean, there's so many others shows out there that I think can perform as well or better than what was winning most of these awards outside of The Watchmen. The Mandalorian, I know we talked about that, some highs and lows, but pretty good highs. But there was a low in Tatooine, but that still got a lot of technical awards, and obviously that deserves it because, like you said, they put a lot of money into it at Disney Plus. But overall, I thought the awards were okay. I just, like I said, I wanted to see something more. I mean, what is on the hot list for Hollywood is not necessarily on my list as the hot list. I just think I see a difference in what I perceive as really, really good and what Hollywood does. I'm beginning to think that. I don't know why. Just some of the things that are hitting with the Emmys are just not hitting with me.
Well, and I think that's acceptable, though. I mean, like the people that make a lot of these TV shows are appreciative of a different genre of TV show, movie, anything like that. I don't think that's a terrible thing, but you also need to make shows that relate to the average viewer. And I think that's, I think Schitt's Creek and Succession both missed on that for me, but it obviously didn't because it hit a home with a whole bunch of people.
Well, there you go. What are your thoughts on the Emmys? Are you glad SCHITT''S Creek won and Succession won and Watchmen won and a whole bunch of other shows that were winners? Zendaya's performance was outstanding, so I'll give props to Zendaya. She did an awesome job, so she deserves it. But what are your thoughts out there on the Emmys? Please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, it's been a great show, my friend. I cannot thank you enough for being a part of it. As always, I want to go ahead and just tell you right now, again, we'd love to have you as far as a permanent fixture right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So I'm looking forward to what you can do here for us going forward or with us going forward. But one last thing before we head on out, because I'm getting kind of hungry, and that is the unfortunate news I heard. I know most of you out there may have not been to it, but you may have heard it over the past 30 or so, 40 or so years. The Sizzler restaurant chain, which right now mainly is on the West Coast here in the United States, that filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy in far as restructuring their assets, whatever they have, their debts, you know how that goes. A very sad time indeed for fans of the Sizzler like me, which I was very sad when they moved out of the Las Vegas market. And that really was a sad day for me when they moved all their restaurants out of there. But as someone who does still go when he gets a chance to California and has, I've introduced my family to the Sizzler. I want to hear your thoughts, man. You said you have some memories on the Sizzler before I go off and tell everybody my old stories on the Sizzler as well.
Yeah, I only have one memory, and that's actually from my mom and my dad. And been an interesting week. My dad actually passed away 2 years ago, Tuesday this week. And so it was fun to kind of have that moment with my mom and say, what do you know about Sizzlers or Sizzlin'? And have her say, when your dad and I trained in Temple, Texas at the VA there, we used to go eat at Sizzlers or Sizzlin'. And the way she talked about it, she kind of laughed about it. And, it was a good time then. I don't know if she would still want to go back now, but it meant something to her. So it does mean something to me. I've never been. I would love to go try one, but it sounds like that's not going to be possible pretty soon. Well,
I didn't say they're going to shut down for good, but closing restaurants may be a possibility. So it's going to be harder and harder to find them. I will say that I have great memories of eating the steak and all you can eat shrimp. And then they have the big salad bar on the side that you can go ahead and get a whole bunch of things at.
So, can you explain the process to me? Like you would order your steak out the gate and then you'd go get the rest of your stuff. And by the time you reach the end of the line, your steak would be ready?
No, not the end. They would serve it to you. They would bring it to you already ready and with either a type of potatoes, vegetables, what have you. But you'd also have the choice of adding on or buying separately a big, huge salad bar. And they would have it sticking there right in the middle of the restaurant. Okay. And you would go ahead. It's just like over 150, 200 items. It's not like a thing that was done halfway. This was a full out salad bar monstrosity with a whole bunch of extra added things, which are not entirely healthy as well. Plus they had a dessert bar and things of that nature. And I mean, they had great gimmicks like, again, all you can eat shrimp with steak. But yeah, basically, they were trying to get you there with steak, however you do it. They had the little signs on it, little tags that they would put on it, like right on the steak. They would put a little, almost like a toothpick thing, but it would say rare, medium rare, well done when you put it right on, when it puts right on it. So it lets you know exactly the way they cooked it and the way you wanted it. And then, yeah, it was just a great time going there for the different deals that they would have every now and then. And I remember me and my friends would go with my dad, and we went to one and just had this, let's see how many shrimp we could eat in one sitting. We just like, have this big old mound of like, shrimp tails and things of that nature stacked high to the gills. So if Sizzler does meet its demise, it's a part of nostalgia, once again, that's going to be gone from our lives. I mean, if you want to check out the Sizzler commercials, because they try to do a lot of things differently with their commercials, check it out on YouTube, especially from the 80s. I highly recommend it for entertainment value, for pop culture, to understand late 80s, early 90s pop culture. But yeah, if you want to get a chance, check out the Sizzler while you still can. You might just be glad you did.
Hey, do you think we could get somebody to fly us out there to just give me the experience of Sizzler? Because if somebody wants to do that, I'm around.
Yeah, I'm ahead. I'm all set to go back and try another steak and all you can eat shrimp with a salad bar, and stuff myself to the gills with the Sizzler. So there you go. What are your thoughts out there on the Sizzler possibly meeting its demise, filing for Chapter 13 bankruptcy this week, and being now basically on life support? Share us your thoughts and memories of the Sizzler at popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. My friend, it's been great having you on board. Once again, I've got interviews next week with Jeff Pearlman. He has got the #1 sports biography out there, the number one basketball biography, Three Ring Circus, based off the three-peat and the years of the early 2000s with the Los Angeles Lakers, the Kobe, Shaq, Phil years. So I'm going to be having an interview with him coming up very soon, and that's going to be hopefully if everything works out, on the Monday show. And on the Friday show, a week from now, my friend, again, I'm going to be having on the great directors of Console Wars, which is now available on CBS All Access. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Give a big shout out to Blake J. Harris and Jonah Tullis for actually wanting to come on the program. So I'm definitely looking forward to that next week. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. Any last thoughts on the way out?
No, just make sure you reach out to me on Twitter, KASTLE FPV. That's Castle FPV. I'm around. I'm down to talk about anything pop culture. Let's go.
There you go. Castle FPV on Twitter.
Yep.
There you go. Castle FPV on Twitter. He's the man behind Castle Creative. And Marcus De La Garza, cannot thank you enough for stopping by right here on the PCC Multiverse. Well, for Gerald Glassford, for Marcus De La Garza, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great